My talk today is going to be about BioJavascript, a JavaScript framework for biological data representation. Actually, I've changed the title because it was for visualization, biological data visualization, but then I was told off that, I should call it data representation because that's actually is a bit slightly more the stuff that we are doing. So let me just present and paint the typical scenario when you try to develop your own web visualization. What do you find? Well, lots of pieces all over the place in the internet, different sizes, different makes. And I don't think this is that particularly different from the kind of scenario when you want to actually look for JavaScript applications around the internet. So what happens is that, many people develop these JavaScript applications with one use only in mind, which is fine, with no documentation because, they are the only ones who are going to use it anyway. So, why bother? It's fragmented. Sometimes if you want to look for some specific application, it's likely that you are not going to find what you're looking for. And so probably you're going to have the functionality somewhere out there, in several different applications. So trying to combine those two different applications actually can become a little bit of a challenge. And there is no easy way to find a functionality in JavaScript because, simply there is nowhere to find it. There's no single place where you can actually go like cpan for Perl. So I think that's a very important problem. So could there be a way to have the functionality that we need with not a lot of effort? Well, what would I need? Well, if I start asking for a wish list, something that obviously I would really want is to have a catalog of all the functionality that is available. And, I will have to rescue in the rubbish bin all of the cartoon where it shows me where the pieces and what I can do actually with my Lego pieces. And, I also want to find an easy way for, finding the pieces. So actually, once I know what pieces I want to actually know what pieces are the ones that I'm interested in and discard those that are not interested in. And I want to have a guide on how to use them because, it can take a long time for me to actually learn how to use things. Some instructions, what pieces go with which pieces. I like to be able to, see when I need to use one particular piece first and another piece second. So that in the end, if I'm really happy, then I'll have a standard way to develop and reutilize the functionality. So I can have all the pieces nicely ordered out there and really easy for me to actually see how to put them together. And I also would like to have a standard way so that whenever I want to develop something, I can actually learn it reasonably quickly. And in fact, if I develop and put something in JavaScript that is available for people, I would like to be able to learn how to implement that particular component once, and not having to learn every time I have to use a different component with different methods and different events, etc. So then I can have my piece of toy which I can share and I can give to my friends and have fun with. So what is BioJavascript really? So the whole purpose of BioJavascript is to help create, use, and share JavaScript components, okay? And how do we do that? Well, by providing a collection of functionality elements and guidelines for building reusable components. So that, at the end of the day, it's for me easier to actually reutilize something that is already available in the registry than reinventing the wheel. Because, what you find is that sometimes with what is out there is a lot more, it's easier to actually reinvent your own thing rather than actually reutilize. So we are very much focused on the reutilization aspects of the components. So that at the end of the day, I avoid the nightmare of whenever I want to discover something, you know, I don't have to crawl the whole of the internet. Whenever I want to see whether something actually works, then I can actually test it with some particular example. I also want to have the possibility of whenever I use something, actually that I'm not constrained by very specific and focused configurations. I want to be able to actually combine existing functionality if I can, because that way I can actually have a better and richer application for my users. I want to be able to extend, and I want to be able to extend in a standard way. And I want to be able that whenever I use one particular component, 3 years down the line, actually it still works somehow. So this is, let's say, a compilation of components, JavaScript components. So how does actually a JavaScript component from the BioJS library work? Well, it would be something like this. We have several layers. So we have a layer of style, a layer of dependencies, a layer of JavaScript, and the actual representation. But you know, we are pretty flexible with the kind of style that you want to adopt. And in fact, you can drop it all together so that you can impose the style that you actually want. And currently, we have 29 components and a registry. And here is a list of components that are currently available. For example, the gene expression summary. So it queries from the gene expression database, and is actually being able to see, it displays the human organism, and you can see each organ, whether the average expression is under or overexpressed. So, you know, we have, as I said, 29 different modules for functionality, and I think it's a reasonably good start. But of course, that's not the whole story. We want to be able to cater as many different functionalities as we can. So we have a collection of components, and you might want to develop your application. And for your application, really, you could have more than one component. So in this particular case, and if I get the pointer right, well, I don't have a pointer, and I got, yeah. So you might want to have 3 views here. So I have the arrow, this arrow, okay. Good. So this is the network visualization component. You can actually click on one of the nodes, and these nodes actually talks to a different component, which basically releases a secondary structure protein. And you could highlight, and I think you are moving my mouse.
I was afraid so.
And now you've moved my slide. And
I'll stop. I'll stop that.
Right. So
Check that before.
the whole point of this application, if Ivo lets me carry on, so is that there is interactivity between the different components. So you want to be able to do something in one window, and in fact, find that the other components talk to each other through events. So in this second case, you could see that if I highlight the secondary structure of a helix, then you can see in the 3D structure component where it is located. So that's the kind of thing that we are talking about. So it's not just reutilization, it's also interoperability. So this is the gene expression summary showcase, which I mentioned earlier. And for this particular case, it's simply a way to query the gene expression atlas. So we have here the ASPM gene that shows the visualization of where this gene is expressed and how much. But I want to drive you to these particular tabs. You have actually for each component, we require that it has to have installation instructions, but also options, so that you can actually see the different configurations and parameters that you can upload, as well as methods and events. So on the right-hand side, you can see the menu where you can actually interact with this example. So if you click, let's say, in one particular organ, you can see what events are triggered, for example, or you can actually see by clicking on any of these methods what's the effect. So the whole purpose of this, again, is reutilization, 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 so that we don't reinvent the wheel. Another example, the BioJS sequence. So again, here you have an alignment and you have a sequence. So by highlighting one particular part of the alignment, then you can see where it is located in the sequence. And this is just to show you a snapshot of the registry, which is now hosted at the European Bioinformatics Institute. And if you go to the registry, this is the home page, this is what you see. So you can get involved. So if you have a link on feature requests, and also you have the link to the documentation. You also have the link to the repository, which is right now in Google Code. We've had quite a few requests that people would like to have it in GitHub, so that might be the case fairly soon. And then if you click on components, you can see all of the different components that are available. And you can see the description, you can see the authors, and the current version that is accessible. There are quite a few groups already that are using BioJS, notably the group of Henningham Jacob, where this initiative actually started. Reactom and Intact, as far as I understand, is using BioJS, but also other groups around the world, like Christine Orengo, Genome 3D, BioT by Alex Garcia, Uniprot, and Kemble. So I think we have a reasonably strong user base behind already to these projects, and hopefully will expand in the near future. So just to remind you that BioJS mission is to help creation, reutilization, and sharing of components, JavaScript components. So how do we help you create things? Well, really, BioJS is not the functionality itself. Really, I'd say that the main thing about BioJS is the compilation of the standards that we provide. Is the fact that, you know, we have some filtering into what goes into the registry. So actually, we ensure that there is a minimum documentation, that there is some code structure, that, you know, you can have the possibility to isolate the components so that, you know, it's actually framework agnostic, and it's reasonably easy to maintain. We also provide a documentation API. So in fact, by adding the documentation to the actual code, this API creates automatically all of the different documentation sections that are required. And in fact, this actually helps a lot because it makes the documentation structure be homogeneous throughout all of the different components that are available. As I've said, we have a registry and examples for each of the components that are available. And very importantly, once you know how to install one component, all other components are installed the same way. And I've mentioned the documentation API, and is actually for extending. So let's say that there is a module or a component there that doesn't exactly do what you want, but it could serve as the basis for that to do. There is a standard way for extending how you actually develop these components. And as I said, we have customized visual styles. So why should we encourage people to use BioJS? Because you can share the development of your applications in JavaScript. Suddenly you have a community with which you can interact and can let them know that you are actually developing this particular functionality. Secondly, because you can actually share whatever you've done and get credit for it, because it's going to be suddenly available and accessible through the registry. also because we provide some kind of common visualization framework. And this is something that big data providers such as Swissprot, Uniprot, Reactom, Intax, all these databases, what happens is that when you actually want to visualize, for example, let's say a protein structure in a different web application, up to now, what would happen is that people would develop their own sort of visualization software, or maybe they would reuse a third-party software that you will have to integrate in the remote site and so on. But you have no guarantee that the kind of visualization that, for example, PDB provides or any of the providers of that particular data want or are an expert in or are an expert on, you are not going to have them because simply, you know, they are the experts. They know how to visualize. They know how to actually represent that information. So for them, the best way to actually allow other people reutilize their data is to have a BioJS component, which people can actually cut and paste and put in the remote site. And then you know that it's actually going to be embedded into your web application as if you had the data provider. I mean, this is something that is actually quite useful for things like journals, where, you know, like for example, they want to have a figure where the user want to interact with the visualization of the figure, like for example, to rotate a 3D structure. And, you know, the journal would be able to provide the functionality without having to actually download the data, you know, you have the functionality there and then. So, I'm just going to say thank you, particularly to Rafael Jimenez and Henningham Jacob, who, again, I think BioJS started because of Henning. So thank you, Henning, for making your environment such an incredible place for innovation. I also would like to thank John Gomez, who actually was an internship student, who, as an intern student, he developed BioJS. Also, Leila Garcia, Gustavo Salazar, who have contributed significantly to the different functionalities. At TIGAC, I'd like to say thank you to David Sobroek, Mario Cacamo, and then at Florida, Alex Garcia. So, if you would like to be part of the mailing list, we have a Google group. The URL was too long, so I actually decided to shorten it. So I'm going to leave this slide for a few seconds. If you would like to actually be part of the Google group for BioJS, I will encourage you to join this list. We also have a Twitter account, BioJS Library, which I have recently hijacked, and so it's going to be a bit biased. And then we have the Google Code repository available at the URL down there. So, and now something completely different, but I'm told that I need to publicize this, so here we go. We have a new fellowship program at TIGAC, which is an amazing place to work. It's where I work, by the way. And basically, we have the fellowship program whereby postdoc people who want to actually start their own lab can have the possibility to get funds, get your own space, and it's an amazing, well, I think it's an amazing place to work with lots of resources and support. So here is where we are. We are in Norwich. When I say Norwich, people say, huh? Where is that? So Norwich is about an hour car drive from Cambridge on the east of England. And in fact, we have quite a few big institutes there, the John Innes Center, which is very strong in plants, and the Sainsbury Laboratory, and the Institute for Food Research. So, thank you very much, and I look forward to your questions or not.
Sometimes there can be sort of bad interplay between JavaScript frameworks. Do you know, does it play nicely if your website already uses AngularJS or jQuery or ECCB?
We've used it with jQuery, and I mean, the whole purpose so far is that it's framework agnostic. So in theory, it shouldn't, there shouldn't be any conflict. But that's the theory. We haven't found anything so far to report.
I have two questions. First of all, the installation part, is it required from the user side or the developer side?
Pardon me? Sorry, can you shout?
Installation.
Yeah.
Is it from the user side or from the developer side?
I think both. It depends on how, if you want to reutilize a component, you just obviously cut and paste, follow the instructions. If you want to be a developer, obviously you need to have a different kind of installation. You can actually have your own registry, if you like, with your own components.
How do you manage the inter-module communication?
Through events. Yeah, we have a sort of standard way of where events are triggered. So we have they should be homogeneous for all components. That's what makes them interoperable.
Question over there?
Yeah, are there any plans to standardize like JSON data structures to allow the modules to talk to each other in the same language in terms of the actual data that the things are represented?
Can we talk later on? Yeah, I'd love to be able to yes, at the moment, I don't think that exists, but I don't know, Henny, that doesn't exist, yeah?
No, that's not. We started from the top of the visualization side, and we might go back down. We didn't want to start, like, let's say, BioJava also started from the data structures and then building up. The purpose was really to visualize individual components. So it might go in that direction.
On the right? Yeah.
Are there any plans to move to HTML5? I think that the current components are supporting HTML5 tags.
If we get more funding, yes. But I love you guys. If you have any requests for functionality, please send me an email or join the, let us know. Because we are kind of starting now, so I think the more ideas we have, the better. I cannot guarantee that we'll implement them anytime soon, but certainly some of them we will try. Would you like to develop it yourself? Yes. Well, the reason being that whoever made that component likes using JMod, and I mean, there's nothing stopping anyone to actually have a component for JSMod. So we have limited functionality so far, but fantastic. That would be another option. Gustavo.
Now, just a comment about the HTML5 question. Is that not in scope to create your component based on HTML5? BioJS more JavaScript. So if you use your HTML5 tags, you can just keep going in that way. I developed a couple of components for BioJS, and that's kind of following the HTML5 idea.
Is there the functionality already supported on mobile devices, or is there any plan to bring the visualizations to my iPhone?
That would be nice.
It is there. Again, it is there. It's JavaScript, so your mobile supports JavaScript. It's going to run JavaScript. The differences would be that you have to capture different events. So instead of a mouse click, you will capture the touch event. So you have to develop that part yourself. But the component is open to develop that.
I would like you to ask your question because you've been waiting for long.
I was going to ask, does your requirements structure let me also have libraries that are Node.js interoperable? Like libraries I can use both in Node.js and on the client?
I shouldn't think that that would be a problem. But again, I guess it would depend on the kind of functionality that you want. Perhaps we can discuss this afterwards. Gosh, I'm so pleased. I thought the whole room was going to be empty. So.
Okay, any more urgent questions, or can we address the rest of the coffee? Okay, then, thanks.